Committee to order, and the first item on the agenda is to approve a transfer of Village of Mohawk property.
This is Mr. Malone.
You want to hand these?
Yes, sir.
Here, I'll take one of those.
I gave it to Bob.
Hey, let's stay on ball.
Got one out.
Ready?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
I had a letter from the village attorney, the Village of Mohawk. The village is in the final stages of completing the environmental contamination remediation of the Mohawk Valley warehouse premises at 9 Canal Street in Mohawk. The village took title directly from the previous owner in 2005 and went after state and federal funding to offset cleanup costs. And then in order to ensure the title, they realized that the county still has a tax lien on the premises for the years 2000 through 2005. The amount owing to the county as of November 14th was $24,829.88. The village is the owner of the premises. It proposes that the county would release its lien at this time in exchange for a village signing a contract that in the event that there's a sale of the premises and there are net proceeds that the village receives, the county would receive reimbursement for these taxes, and in computing their net proceeds, it would only be the village's actual out-of-pocket expenses. In other words, no grants would be allowed to be computed, and that's our usual proposal. And he made that proposal because he called me up and asked me how to do this, and I said, this is what we usually do. And so he's...
Proceeds is the same as profit?
Yes, sir.
So the cost of any federal money for cleanup, or whoever they got money for cleanup, then is not go into that cost?
This is only village actual unreimbursed out-of-pocket expenses. It would exclude any grant funds, and we put that in the contract.
That's considered a grant when the government gives the cleanup?
Yes, we put that in the contract. So it's the usual contractual arrangement that we entered into with municipalities when they take a contaminated parcel and clean it up, that if they make money, we get paid first before the village would profit.
So
That's the proposal at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Here, go ahead.
The reason we would have a tax on it is because we were holding them harmless during the MRM process for those years?
I
Is that where
believe we
that...
paid the taxes for
Right.
those years.
My question, once I had my hand up, was when do we usually go 3 years? How come there's 5 years we pay taxes on this property before we take it?
Because it was contaminated, I expect we wouldn't touch it.
No, Rob, is that
And
going
then
to
it came, at some point, we took it off the rolls. So no further taxes would accrue.
be tax exempt until they sell it, Rob?
It's owned by the village?
It's owned by the village right now, so as long as it's owned for village purposes, it would be tax exempt. That's really a decision for the assessor to make, not us.
Mr. Chairman, we did this in Dowsville with Stewart's, and it's the only time I recollect in the time that I've been here, and the exciting part about that was the property was going to go on the tax rolls, there were going to be jobs associated with it. Do we know anything that the village plans on doing with this property? Are they planning on selling it, or what are they planning to do with it?
If there's an environmental factor, they want to get that behind them to make it marketable.
Have they cleaned it up already, or
I think they're working on it, aren't they?
Not complete.
It's not complete, but they're working on it.
They finished, let's say, phase 1 and 2. Third phase they haven't done. So whatever that is, to my
But
knowledge.
as far as I'm concerned, if they're willing to venture into that realm and incur those costs and the craziness of it, knowing it's contaminated, and we have the potential someday down the road to maybe get this back on the tax roll, and
Absolutely.
And we're going to get our money back anyways.
we would get it back if and when there is a final sale.
It worked out good in Dowsville.
If not, it still goes on
Stewart's
maybe into the realm of the private sector where somebody's paying taxes on it.
But
It
Dennis,
just sits there with nothing done on it.
I agree. I guess I'm curious, though, the point that Kurt just brought up, and that makes certain, the fact that we went 3 years and we continued for 2 more just because it was contaminated, I'm curious how that happens and who watches this so that we're not continuing to do that. That we make certain any of the lists of properties that we have, that we say after 3 years, if we know that they're contaminated, or in some fashion, put the onus on municipalities to alert us, or however we should find out that the property's contaminated, so that we stop paying after the 3 years. I mean, if the village took ownership on that, I don't know why we continue to do that. I mean, it ought to be a shared pain.
I can tell you from what I know about that situation, it went for 3 years, some fellow bought it. He turned around, he couldn't buy it the second time when it went up for taxes, so he had his girlfriend buy it. She had no knowledge of anything, and I believe she moved to Massachusetts. Right, Rob?
I don't remember the specifics.
Out of state.
Yeah.
And
That
there's
sounds
a
familiar.
separate
Yeah.
law that deals with
Sound
that.
very familiar.
And,
That's why we got the plan.
yeah, you
It's
can't go
actually-
after somebody out of state on a parcel.
So it was a change in ownership, even though they might have had some other
Right,
relationship.
and I think that's why the taxes went on for a year or two, because everything was in turmoil, it was up in litigation.
But so then the owners went to the village and said, here, we'll give this to you, and they took it out of the
No.
in-rent process?
The deal was that for her to get out of this clean, she had to give it to the village. That's how the village got involved.
Right.
The village
Somebody
said,
had
give
to-
us your contaminated property.
Well,
Yeah,
I
but,
think-
but they had already, I believe at that point, had an assurance that the Fed was gonna come in and
Okay,
help clean it
all
up.
right, thank you.
The actual taxes are $10,250, and interest is $14,477.99, plus there are some fees, so
14,000, what was that?
$14,477.99 is interest. So most of it is interest at this point.
But we have that total cost is what we get, we
No,
balance
no.
against their profit. If they were to make any profit, we
You know,
get up to that amount.
our lien, the total amount of our lien, and we will have it computed as of the day we enter into the contract, but mid-November is $24,829.88.
so, but real money, we're out 10. That's what we paid out.
10,000.
Well, not necessarily, because that also includes town and or county taxes. So we would not have paid that out, that's just money we didn't receive, but we reimbursed the village and the school.
10,000.
John,
Something under 10.
Mr. Chairman, would anybody in this room know why somebody would go after a property like that, or what they would use it for? What would be the idea of buying something like this, or investing in something like this here?
The
What would they
individual-
use it for, Bob, do you know?
The individual that bought it in the first place, in which I was upset that the county sold it, but because it was, the handwriting was on the wall. This guy was gonna rent out space, and he did, and he collected revenue from it. And he did it for 3 years, didn't pay a penny. Then he turns around and gets his girlfriend to buy it, and here we go for another 3 years. And then he could probably turn around and get his mother, but somewhere in between there, this, I don't even know the guy's name, but obviously, it was pretty obvious to see what he was up to and how he was getting away with it at our expense, and we couldn't put a stop to it.
Where is this?
And I complained very loudly about it, and finally, the place burnt down. And when it did, and the fact that she was out of state, I think there was mention that somebody would have to do something, and they'd have to go after her, and she would be responsible. And then they cut a deal that if she turned the property over to the village, then the village would try and get it cleaned up. This is going back, what, 5 years or longer.
Where in the village is this property?
And then finally,
That's
the
the old
county,
house.
under the state law, we were allowed to get out of it because the property was contaminated now.
Yeah.
So we stopped paying taxes on it.
Village actually does a favor.
Yeah.
It's contaminated enough that you can't build residential or nothing.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
I'll
second
second.
it.
But they've cleaned it up.
What kind of,
Yeah.
Commercial.
Any more discussion? No, go ahead, John.
Bob, what contamination, what are you speaking of? What are they speaking of about contamination? Asbestos or what?
Well, yes, there was asbestos when the building burned down. There was boilers inside. There was a fuel tank outside. I don't think that's ever been taken care of, unless they did remediation work and dug it up. I don't recall or remember seeing it being dug up. But all the water from the fire and all the chemicals that were in there, and whatever he was storing in there, I have no idea. All this stuff went in the ground, basically.
Would there have been other properties that were affected by the stuff going in the ground? Because that's what happens, you know. It
Yeah,
travels.
I don't know what extent the
I mean,
testing.
the village is gonna have to pursue the environmental consequences of this.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, I mean, it would be,
I mean, one of the things we did is we never took title, total title, because we feared the environment. The county never took title. All we have is this lien against it, but we never took title. So we aren't,
well, that's what
we
you're
aren't
doing now.
responsible, but it's up to the village to try to sift through everything, apply for the grants that are necessary to remediate those, and if and when they're successful, and if they profit from it, beyond what their costs are, then they've got to start paying us back on this $24,000.
Yeah.
So,
It's a win.
more power to
It's a
them
win.
to do it. I can't wait for,
I think basically what they did, they went in and cleaned the site up, removed all the debris. Well, you can go by there and you can still see the concrete floor. That hasn't been removed. So there's a lot of remedial work that has to be done yet. I would not want to own it.
Bob, is it near their well field?
Huh?
Near their well field, where their wells are?
Yeah,
So maybe that's why
basically,
they're
yeah.
concerned
It
with it.
sits
They
on
figure
top
they'd
of
do
the
it,
aquifer.
otherwise nobody would do it.
Is it right there by 5S?
Yep.
Yeah, it's right on the corner
It was
there.
probably a good move on their part to,
Yeah.
because no one would,
and we've got a precedent of doing this in other places. If the local municipality is stepping up on an environmental issue and maybe eventually getting something back on the tax roll, I think it's,
Dennis, excuse me 1 minute, 1 minute. If that is where I think it is, then we're talking about that main aquifer that starts in Marcy and runs all the way down to Albany. That's that main aquifer
Yeah.
that a lot of people are tapped into.
Yep.
You also got a dump sitting on top of it.
you know how many dumps there are, top that aquifer.
I don't think they've done any brownfield on that property, so that's something else that's gonna have to be done.
Is there a chance that the state of New York, the health department should be notified of this here? Really,
Oh, I-
truly? Because you're affecting a lot of people here.
They're well aware of it.
They are well aware?
Mr. Chairman, who's running
okay,
this?
is that,
Wait, Dan.
yes, enough, go ahead.
I know there's been people there testing all along for a long time, so if there's any imminent danger to any aquifer, I'm sure everybody know about it and it'll be taken care of right away. As far as what contamination is left, I'm sure we can find out. DEC has public records on that stuff, but I'm seriously
I
doubt.
mean,
there's
number
any-
one, if it's registered with DEC ranks yours a priority of their different spills and contamination sites. And if DEC knows, they've got it appropriately flagged as to how serious it is.
Again, it's the
Correct.
corporation who walked away from it too, and left it contaminated, but a lot of that happening all over the place.
I can tell you, if you spill 5 gallons of gasoline at a gas station, DEC knows about it within 15 minutes. So,
All right, is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
I-
Opposed? Carried. In rem settlement, Rob?
Mr. Chairman, this is a matter of pending litigation in Little Falls City Court, where the county's taken action to collect a deposit.
You recommend an executive session?
I
Rob?
do, yeah.
Motion going to executive session for,
We're not
Advice of
obligated to, Mr. Chairman, we're not obligated. Is there a reason, I understand that it's litigation, but we're not obligated to an executive session. If this is, may we understand if this goes back to the sale in June, where people didn't follow through on their bids, is that what, this is the litigation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Judy made the motion, anybody second?
I did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Quick
Opposed?
tonight.
Carried.
Eat too much candy. They're very interested in checking us out. They're coming in, meeting with the whole legislature, explaining what they would offer for, you know, a fee and everything, how their structure is.
does Bernie, get RFPs? Is that how
You
we
guys
do it?
call.
We have done that.
We did it 2 years ago. We decided last year not to go, right?
Okay,
So, you know, we could,
well, there's time, but it's, time's
to do
getting
it
short.
Right, right,
So,
well, that's why
I mean, if you wanna go out for RFPs, I'm in favor of any way the committee wants to do
They
it.
tell you right in their brochure what they charge you.
Yeah, we've
It
had
was
3
gonna
or 4
cost
of
us
them,
60,
and they're right off the
$50,000
wall.
to $60,000 more
Yeah.
to go with these companies.
Yeah.
And you got a local person who's gonna do it besides. It's a no-brainer.
I mean, do we wanna go out to bids, do we wanna go out for, have Bernie get RFPs?
I thought Jimmy should.
Well, doing an RFP doesn't preclude a local person from doing it.
No.
Right, that's,
No, but it's what their terms are. There's a higher percentage that they were gonna get. We're being charged by the parcel now. These other companies are charging a percentage, which is we estimated to be a lot more. And you have no idea what they're gonna bring in.
Right.
So you're gonna advertise more, but
They
you
may have-
don't know what the market's gonna be that
They
day.
may
Oh, we
have
did
broader
2 years ago.
exposure of the properties.
I mean, if
Put them out for
there's other
bid.
vendors out there that weren't there 2 years ago.
no, but what, right, but what I'm saying though, too, Jim, is their, how do I say, it? Their promotion of this sale might be a lot better than the people that we're using currently. They might have more sites that they put it on. I just feel that
I
with the
understand all
technology
that. I
today.
understand all that. But you gotta have a reason to come here. You know, there's a lot of empty buildings in the state.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean? So the market's gotta be there. And
right.
nobody's gonna know if they brought in more business or we just had a bad day.
Yeah, but they advertise broader than we do, don't they?
That's what I'm saying, they're
It's all
advertising.
local guys. You go to the auctions, I've been to the last
Yeah, it's
10 of them. It's all local people there that are all local landlords are buying this stuff up.
Where you're talking about.
Anyway,
Yeah,
if you wanna try it, you try it.
Well, I just thought that.
I mean, if you wanna explore ideas, I don't have a problem doing it.
But we should
That's
do
what
it
the committee
now,
wants to do.
because it's June is when you have the sale,
That's
in
right.
May, and they start advertising when. We have our list, when is our list prepared for what we would be selling? When does that happen?
April 10th?
February,
April.
April?
Yeah, because people have time to redeem.
All you have to do is look at their proposals and you'll know right off the get-go.
So do you wanna go out for RFPs, or do you wanna go out to formal competitive bidding?
I say no, that's me.
Can I speak?
Go ahead.
I know what Chairman Bono said about we may not get something good in or better. And one thing my belief is, it doesn't hurt to try to get them. And if you want them to bid per parcel, that's what you ask for in the bid specs. If nothing comes in better than what we're getting now, then you can always accept or reject any and all bids. So I never see the harm in getting in more offers. We can't just go based on the assumption that we think maybe somebody may not give us a better deal.
So is there a recommendation then? Or do you wanna-
I'll recommend,
you wanna recommend what?
do
I
RFPs.
recommend, well, do RFP, yeah, RFP. Do an RFP.
And again, I'm
Yeah,
not
it's just
encouraging, I'm
easy.
just saying.
I know, and I'm not
That makes
encouraging-
more
I'm
sense, you're
just-
looking for professional services.
Correct.
Yeah, right, you don't want some
That gives you a little more,
Flexibility.
Thank you.
flexibility.
So how do
Good
we,
word.
how are you gonna,
so the motion is to instruct
Bernie,
Kim and Bernie
to get together and drop our.
to send out the RFPs.
We did
Because the gentleman,
Just meet the guidelines, guys, okay?
because
Leave it to us to meet the guidelines.
Yes, you guys know,
I mean, when they need it back, when it's gotta get out.
Because Jim, when I was talking about the guy, he knew how
You guys told me that
our
part.
person did it, and he said.
Well,
they
it
would do
just,
the same way.
it also just takes the ultimate selection, and it just validates it, that's all.
Yep.
Business to a trade, it's okay.
So,
I'm not really good.
Can we
Well,
take a
if
look.
it's making more money for the
Always-
county, no, but what I'm saying, Jim, if it's making more money for the county itself.
You don't know that. You have no way of knowing if it made more money or less money.
But if
Because
it's
you
the
don't know what
same,
that market's
Yeah,
gonna bring
that's-
in.
but the thing is, though, is if they.
we're going to
Right.
take a look.
Till the
We're
12th.
gonna take a look.
Take a look at it. and
Dennis,
see.
we're
Yes.
gonna have one meeting.
What?
We're gonna have one meeting here. Then we should talk.
Yeah,
Have one meeting out.
Motion's been made by Bob.
Motion been made by
Bob.
Bob, second by? Is there a second to go out to RFPs?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to go out to RFPs. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Bob and Jim. Passes by one.
Passes by.
Can I just clarify something? talked about whether they would bid by per parcel or some other way that came in before. Are we gonna specify as per
I
parcel?
think Bernie and Kim will get together and put together a proposal. And do we want to come back to the committee with a proposal before it goes out?
No, I don't go with it.
I'd rather let us go then if you want.
I don't
us-
have a
If
problem.
you want us to let us, we'll
I
send you
don't.
something
Does
as
the
we
committee
go.
want them to come back or
I
no?
think
No,
this has
that's
got
what I'm
to, I think this has got to be pretty quick, guys.
And Jim,
Yeah.
you've got your buddies that do it in other
Oh,
counties,
absolutely.
right? They'll be, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay?
True.
And they all have their own way of doing things, you have to be flexible.
Right.
That's why they're RFP route.
Right.
Yeah, no, and
Same thing, it isn't gonna be all necessarily gonna be a percentage or all per parcel, let them come in and, that's the way how you get the best deal. Because if you limit it to a very specific way of doing it, you're gonna limit the number of people coming in and proposing.
Right.
Well, I think back at some of those family services, there's no way of telling what, after a client, others were talking about per month, others were talking about per year. I don't see how you can compare them when they come in.
Well, when they do.
If somebody's bidding on a whole project versus per parcel or whatever.
I would just suggest that if you're doing an RFP, you have your own way of scoring and evaluating so many points for this or that to see who comes out high, who comes out the best. I mean, that's the way it should be on the critical elements.
It'll be pretty obvious.
My critical element is
It'll
the
be
county
obvious.
makes more money, whatever way, the most money out of the,
Well, it's going to
Jim,
RFPs.
the only other thing that I would ask is that we understand just how much county labor goes into the process as it stands. Because I think in the past that we've had conversation on whether what we do as opposed to what the contractor does.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
that
About the
kind
whole-
of thing.
About the whole contract.
Yeah, because sometimes people are gonna be coming in and doing things that we probably are doing now at the auction that we might not need to do, so we need to understand what we're already investing in the process, I think, as you're balancing it. Because the local guy, didn't we provide, we don't have him touch the money, we don't have him do this, we don't have him do
We
that.
don't let anybody touch the money.
you said,
Well,
No
and you can have somebody there with a
No auctioneer
calculator.
will ever touch your money if you have a brain in your head.
Rob, it's our responsibility to secure the property once we take ownership? Or do we allow, say there's personal belongings there, we have in the past allowed people to recover those personal belongings?
Yes,
And what type of time frame?
reasonable time. Depends on the circumstances and proof of ownership also.
Well,
We
once-
don't sell any personal property that's in these, we don't take title to it. It's not ours.
But if it's dilapidated, it's our responsibility to,
We sell it as is.
And some of them are occupied.
Usually the day we take
We
it,
sell
guys,
owner
if it's a
occupied.
Yes,
problem,
we
the
do.
code officer contacts me in Richmond.
When we have to.
But we
I think
actually,
that's your question.
we actually have sold them
No,
occupied.
no, just so everybody
No,
knows,
yeah.
too.
We
Don't let it go and let it go, but when they know we own it, then we get a call.
We use
No,
flex-
there's a liability,
we use flexibility and
mow the
common
grass,
sense
we'll
in addressing these
board
problems.
it up.
no, Rob, with the foreclosure on that, are we paying, when we figure with the auctioneer, are we figuring in the, somebody going out there padlocking the place up, is my question. Is that figured in with the auctioneer price? Or is that the county
We don't
going
go
out
pad,
there?
we don't go padlock them. We have to, we do.
and does that. If we get a call from the codes guy saying
Or the
it's
police.
insecure, the police, you know, it's not secure, then
Okay.
our maintenance will do it.
Okay,
We're
So that is a
better
cost.
at adhering to what the codes are than a lot of the people that are out there.
exactly,
At that point, we still own the property.
right.
And it's our responsibility, and it's gonna be our liability if somebody gets hurt on county property. So if the police call and say that there's vandals going in that house, then Jim will have maintenance or somebody going, they'll board it up.
Right, okay.
And put padlocks on the door, so.
We don't own it, We don't own it for long.
We've taken every precaution.
Piece of chicken.
we don't own it for long,
Dennis,
hopefully.
Yes.
The property that will be sold, I'm just trying to get the interim dates in my head. We've got, the people have got until when to reclaim, to pay? January 31st, is it?
No, no, it's early in January. Usually
I wanna
second
say
week
the
in
11th.
January,
So January 11th, they've got to pay, then they're litigating perhaps,
correct?
that they want, and then the drop dead date is there a drop dead date before they come to us for?
The January date is a drop dead date. After that, we do not consent to any payment. Only by court order will people be allowed to redeem their
Or
property.
people that come asking for special consideration,
And
this-
triple
the
those
group votes on it.
Or 3 times the taxes
Yeah, that's
after
what
that.
happened to me last year.
Anything else? Go ahead, Gary.
I don't know if this pertains to this committee, because the IDA is a quasi-agency, but I guess is the county able to get a place boarded up that's unsafe? I'm talking about the Quackenbush property. I know back when I was on the board, our codes officer sent a letter to the IDA asking that it be boarded up and the 6-foot high grass and bushes be cut down, and we were told the IDA didn't have any money. I mean, can the county do anything to board that place up?
You don't understand it, we don't own it, we own it in title.
Yeah, but we're talking
Yeah,
county,
we got
Jim. County can't do it.
responsibility. The county can't do anything.
You know,
The mortgage holder, I believe, Bruce Ward,
He never
Question is, can the
foreclosed.
county do it?
Bruce
No.
did.
well, the
The
IDA
IDA
gave a
owns it.
contract to Bruce Ward that said, you give us $5,000, board up the building, and we'll allow you to take whatever you want out of it, was the contract the IDA gave.
Right.
I don't know which of the buildings it was, but there was that agreement. They were supposed, that he was supposed to board it up, but I don't know if they were boarded and then deboarded by people.
Right.
You know, nominal title though, I just read in the paper, when we talked about Little Falls and the price chopper, the paper quoted that the IDA is gonna hold nominal title to that property. I thought the thing with the Quackenbush was an anomaly, that title. Is that correct, do we know? That's what the paper quoted it as, saying nominal title to the price chopper, or P&C or whatever the heck it is that's going there. The newspaper
Both
said,
these
I
items
think
fall
it's you
under the,
guys.
Planning and Development Committee, don't come
Okay.
on properties.
nominal title is always used.
So moved and adjourned.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
They use the term nominal title.
Second.
I thought that's interesting.
Bob and Bob?
Yep.